byddandedwydd. Sing it with me. Byddandedwydd. 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 Pick your byddandedwydd. Or any harmony you like. Byddandedwydd. Be happy. Byddandedwydd. Byddandedwydd.
This is the story of Taliesin. Taliesin is the Welsh spirit of prophecy, poetry and inspiration. This story starts on the banks of Llyn Tegid, Bala Lake. And there on the shores of that great long lake there was a forest. And by the edge of the forest, between the forest and the lake, there was a cauldron. There was a fire under the cauldron, and the cauldron bubbled hot, and it was being looked over by Cyrydwen, the sorceress. She was going to make a powerful magic spell. But she needed the firewood, and she yelled for Gwion Bach. Gwion Bach, a knobbly little kid, he came rushing out with a big pile of wood. He put it underneath the cauldron, and the flames reached high. And when she saw that, she was happy, and Cyrydwen, the sorceress, lay down and fell fast asleep. And Gwion Bach watched the cauldron bubble and boil. It was hot and exciting, and he peered inside, and there he saw the strangest thing. On the surface of the mixture, 1, 2, 3, strange drops manifested themselves. And still the cauldron was bubbling and boiling, and what he didn't realise was that these 3 drops were made of pure inspiration, poetry and creativity. The rest of the cauldron was made of pure poison. You can't have those 2 things in the same cauldron, and those 3 drops, they flew out of the mixture and they landed right on Gwion Bach's finger. It was the most painful thing he'd ever experienced, and he did exactly what we would have done. Ow! Oh. He swallowed those 3 drops. And in that moment, he knew everything. He knew everything that had been, everything that is, and everything that would be. And with all that knowledge in his head, he knew what would happen next. Cyrydwen, the sorceress, would wake up and kill him. So with all that knowledge, he knew exactly what to do. Run.
Taka taka takeri taka 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 taka.
Gwion Bach ran and ran. Cyrydwen the sorceress woke up. She was catching up on him. He could feel her hot breath on the back of his neck. And then something strange happened. He started to put his hands down on the ground, but he didn't have hands anymore, he had paws. He was covered in fur, he had long ears, he was a hare, and vroom. But just as he thought he was escaping, he heard something else running behind him. He didn't need to look round to know what it was. It was a hunting dog. It was getting closer and closer. He could feel the hunting dog's breath in the back of his neck, and then the hare jumped into the air just as the hunting dog leapt, and it changed from a hare into a fish. Splash into the nearby river, leaving the dog panting on the back. But then there was another splash. The dog had turned into an otter. The otter was gaining on the fish, which was tiring, and just as it was about to bite down on its tail, the fish leapt into the air, and as the water dried on its back, boom, wings appeared from its body. Away it flew, transformed into a bird. High in the sky above the bird was a hawk. It saw the bird and folded its wings and dropped like a stone, reaching out with its talons. But you know what? Just at the critical moment, there was no bird. or feathers, or beak, or eyes.
Yn gryfio ar y rhwng gyfer a
Grain of wheat was all it was, blown down, down, down towards the farm, blown over the roof of the farm building, and then whoosh, straight into the barn. And there it nestled, on top of a huge pile of 100,000 other grains of wheat. And then through the open barn door came a black hen with red eyes. She looked around, inspected the grains of wheat, until she saw a grain of wheat that was plumper and tastier than the others. She pecked it. She swallowed it. And then on the way out, turned herself back into Cyridwen, the sorceress. Went home very pleased with herself that she had caught, consumed and killed her enemy, Gwion Bach. However, after a while she knew something was not right. She began to feel a bit strange, a bit ill. Then she thought to herself, no, it can't be. But you know what she was? She watched her belly swell. It got fuller and fuller. And she realised that she was going to give birth to Gwion Bach, her enemy. She had a simple and brutal plan. She gave birth to the baby, and when she saw it, her heart melted. The baby was so beautiful, and it was still her baby, but she couldn't live with it. She got a calf skin, put the baby on the calf skin, got needle and thread, sewed the baby inside the calf skin, watched its little face disappear into the darkness of the bag. Broke the thread, lifted the leather parcel with her baby inside, walked westwards to the sea, held it high and threw it with all her might. She threw it into the sea and watched it disappear over the horizon. Lan a lawr, ar y tonnau mawrion, llanw a thrai, baban bychan mewn sach. And that baby stayed in the bag on the sea for 40 years. 40 years later, a man called Elfin goes to fish. He sets his net in the estuary, goes inland and waits for the tide to come in, for the sun to go down, for the stars to come out, for the stars to fade, for the sun to rise, and for the sea to ebb, and then he would go and catch all the fish in his nets, but his nets were empty. What was he meant to do? Where were the fish? He noticed something. It was a stone. He was about to kick it in his frustration, when he thought there was something strange about it. So he picked it up, and it was far too light to be a stone. And there, amongst the barnacles and limpets, he could see a line of stitches. He took it to the shore, and he took his knife and he unpicked the stitches. And finally, when he could get his thumbs in either side, he pulled either side of the bag apart, looked inside, and looking out at him was a baby's face. But you see, this baby's face was like no other, because its forehead was gleaming with a bright, iridescent golden light. And without even thinking, Elfin said the words, Taliesin. Taliesin. Shining forehead. Yeah, said the baby. Taliesin, ydw i? That's right. I'm Taliesin. Well, what do you do when you find a speaking baby that you've just fished out of the sea? You go and see your dad, because he'll know. So he carried the baby all the way back to his father's house, and to his surprise, as he carried the baby spoke, but not baby talk, not normal human language at all, in fact. Poetry.
Elfin deg, byddam ddedwydd. Elfin deg, byddam ddedwydd. Elfin deg, byddam ddedwydd. Danfonwyd I ti brydydd. Elfin deg, byddam ddedwydd. Danfonwyd I ti brydydd. Elfin deg, paid ag wylo.
Elfin Dig, said the baby in poetry. Elfin, my friend, be happy. The sea has sent you a poet.
Elfin Dig, paid a gwylo, nes awna, doed a ddelo.
Elfin Dig, do not cry on account of the fish that you have not caught. You've caught something much better. You've caught a poet.
Rhinwedd sydd ar fy nhafod, wedi lawer rhyfeddod.
Talent and magic is on my tongue. You will see many more strange and wondrous things.
Mod yn fach, rwy'n gelfydd.
I might be little, but I'm skillful.
Mod yn fach, rwy'n gelfydd.
Elfin Dig, my friend, you have helped me and now I will help you.
Elfin Dig, paid a gwylo, nes awna, doed a ddelo.
Elfin, my friend, you've been good to me and I will be good to you.
Rhinwedd sydd ar fy nhafod, wedi lawer rhyfeddod.
Elfin Dig, I've come to you as a poet and a blessing.
Danfon wedi dibredu, Elfin Dig, byddai'n ddedwydd. Danfon wedi byddai'n ddedwydd, Elfin Dig, byddai'n ddedwydd.
Elfin Dig, my friend, be happy. Well, he carried the poetry-speaking baby inside his father's castle and went into a room and popped the baby on the floor. The baby was sitting up quite nicely, and then his father came in. A man called Gwyddnog Aran here who had seen many strange things in his life, but nothing as strange as this. What have you brought me? What have you fished out of the sea then? Gwyddno leans forward at a look, doesn't really like what he sees. Gives the strange child a prod and a poke with a stick and asks a very good question. What are you? Human or spirit? And the baby looks up, opens his mouth and speaks. Bym ci, bym hydd, bym uwch y mynydd, bym bôn, bym rhaw, bym bwyall yn llaw.
Bym ci, bym hydd, bym uwch y mynydd, bym bôn, bym rhaw, bym bwyall yn llaw, bym ceiliog, bym taro, bym marw, bym piw. Bym ci, bym hydd, bym uwch y mynydd, bym bôn, bym rhaw, bym bwyall yn llaw, bym ceiliog, bym taro, bym marw, bym piw. Bym ci, bym hydd, bym uwch y mynydd, bym bôn, bym rhaw, bym bwyall yn llaw, bym ceiliog, bym taro, bym marw, bym rhaw, bym bwyall yn llaw, bym ceiliog, bym taro, bym marw, bym taro, bym marw, bym piw. I've been a dog. I've been a stag. I've been a hind on the hill. I've been a log of wood. I've been an axe in the hand. I've been a cockerel. I've been a bull. I've been alive and I've been dead. I've been alive and I've been dead. Bym uwch y mynydd, bym bôn, bym rhaw, bym bwyall yn llaw, bym ceiliog, bym taro, bym marw, bym byw, bym marw, bym byw. I've been alive, I've been dead. Been alive, I've been dead. Gwyddnog Aran here was not impressed.
What a bloody poet! And a poet is exactly what Taliesin was.